My dear friend. How are
Hello.
you?
Hello. I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to see you.
As am I. I know. I wish it could have been in person. I was so close.
I know you were so close for so long, which is so unusual and so
Yes,
far at the same time.
indeed.
So listen, thank you for talking with us because you're a hard woman to tie down in this area. You're really very uncomfortable talking about yourself. And
Mm,
I always, because obviously I've spent so much time with you over the years and we're so close, I've always tried to get inside your head, but it's very hard to do. So I use this platform as an excuse to pick your
mm.
brain, and obviously the girls were super pumped as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure you're deriving some sick kind of pleasure from this, actually. So I'm a little nervous, to be honest.
you should be,
Yep.
should be. Um,
Mission accomplished.
you are like one of the most humble, modest people on the planet, so I'm sure you'll be uncomfortable, but that's okay. Before we get started, I'm just going to acknowledge some of the amazing things you've done because you spend so much time lifting the sport for other people and helping other people, you know, move forward, that it's important sometimes to look back and hear about the awesome things you've done. 4-time
Mm.
World Cup player, 2 silver, 1 bronze and 1 gold. Maryland All-American 4 times, 3-time National Player of the Year, first all-time NCAA points with 445. Inducted into the US Hall of Fame, and obviously not to mention all your amazing coaching stripes that you've earned over the years. And you're also just a massive pioneer for pro women's lax, which has completely taken huge strides over there with your backing and support. Obviously I had the privilege of playing with you and against you since we were little girls, and in college, and through playing with you in Australian teams and coaching with you as well. But you are, in my opinion, the greatest player that ever played the sport. And I know you don't believe it, but the world believes it, and I certainly believe it. And it wasn't just the way you played, it was your understanding of the game, the tactical, the lacrosse IQ. There truly is no one like you. And I think when I was thinking about you, I was like, what actually was it when more playing with you, and just the frustration of playing against you too, was the innovation was always at the forefront, and you were always so poised, but you were always at your best under pressure. You were always at your best when things mattered the most, which is what fascinates me. Like, that's where we'll lead the chat through. But you just had the ability, even, and as a coach as well, to read a play so quickly and adjust tactically and intelligently to change what was happening. And then you just kind of led the rest of your team along with you, by controlling that narrative for us. So I know that that was probably really uncomfortable for you and you're sweating, but I'm so glad that I got to say that to you. But also now you're changing the lives of so many young girls coaching at Loyola, and those girls that are playing pro lax over there, and just, you literally give up things in your own life to help move the sport forward in Australia as well. So I'm so super pumped to start the questions. Tell me how much you're sweating.
Should I take you off mute now? Good time to take you off mute. No, you've always talked a lot of crap, Stace, so now's no moment. But
hey, mate, if anyone knows you in this space, it's me.
Appreciate the very kind. That's actually the nicest you've ever been to me, I think.
I actually think it might be.
I hope it is getting recorded. I plan to play that back before I go to bed every night.
Visualization. Stick it in. Here's Stacey being nice because it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
So let's start with our first question that we ask everyone is, tell us about your morning routine and how you start your day.
Oh, well, I'm big on, what's up?
I'm easing you in.
Yeah, that's not a hard one. So basically I've really made a point of recent years to not try to get on my phone too much. I'll wake up and lay in bed for a little bit and just kind of gather myself, and always, it's just something over the last couple of years that I try to affirm to myself right as I'm about to get out of my bed. I go, can I swear on here?
Yeah.
Earmuffs.
Oh.
I say, time to win the fucking day.
Right.
And that's our start every morning. as soon as I get out of bed, time to win the fucking day. And for me, I like to, I don't know, you probably might get into this later on about some of the pre-game routines or things like that were helpful for me. But I'm big on, like, I love to feel clean and like start the day that way. I do my best thinking in the shower. So like always start the day off with a shower, feeling fresh, feeling clean, and yeah, do a lot of good thinking in there. So I like that way of kind of easing into my day and feeling prepared and going through the chronological order, how I got to get stuff done, and then rocking and rolling from there.
Great. Good answer.
Coffee. Got to get coffee.
Oh, mate, coffee. You are massive.
My only vice, though, so we're all good.
Okay, so we're going to segment the questions because there were so many, but we'll start with your college days. Obviously, you're a Brighton girl and went through that process, played state and all that, and went to college. And even thinking back to you then playing against you in state and being friends with you, you used to bill it with me, and you were always you always had a different style. You always were much more poised than everyone else. You had those things from a very young age. It certainly didn't develop in college. You went with it. But we'll just start the college chat because that might have been hopefully when you started to reflect on what you did and how you did it. But one of the questions was, what quality do you think made you different when you got to the US? What do you think made you stand out so quickly?
Oh, I'm not sure that I did stand out so quickly. I actually really remember I went over in January. So the other freshmen had already been there for half a year. And I remember getting over there and practicing, and Gary Gate pulled me aside at one point and was like, I know you're so much better than what you're playing like. You need to step in. But I was kind of observing and watching and wasn't sure of my role. I didn't know what, the US lacrosse kind of, how it all played out. College was a really different kind of funny little scene with like seniors having seniority and all this like weird kind of dynamic that I never experienced in Australia. So I remember feeling like it was very unnatural kind of in that moment to try to figure out where my place was and what you're supposed to do. And I remember him saying, don't ever, while you're here, don't you ever think of yourself as anything but a Maryland lacrosse player. Like, stop thinking of it like you're a freshman or you're young or you're whatever, that's only going to hold you back. And I think it was the best words I ever got. After that, I felt like the freedom to go out onto the field and just play my game. And like he'd said, I'll pull you back if I need to pull you back, but there's nothing worse than having to push you off the cliff as a coach. So that was, I think, really good advice for me to go through. And I don't think I had that in Australia as much. I always would step out on a field and just play and unleash. And maybe part of that is I didn't used to think so much about it. It was a very kind of innate get out on the field and just play, and a byproduct of playing so many other sports and having that competitive spirit where it was like, you go out there and you're determined to win and you want to play and you want to have fun and you want to do all that. And then, I think college was a combination of all these other things added into it. But early conversation with Gary, I think, led me back to, my years at Brighton or in state, where it was just go out and play. Like, you have no reason to hold yourself back. Let someone else do that for you if they need to do that for you.
And as time went on, what do you think it was in your mind? Was it that kind of made you who you are? Because you developed over the years significantly, but you were always in there. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, she's all of a sudden a senior and she's this incredible player. Like, you were that for the 4 years. But do you think it was the mental edge? Like, what do you think it was for you that, made you so successful?
Yeah, I think I'm a competitive person. Like, I want to win at everything I do. I've been like that since I was a kid. And I think playing sports as a young age, even back to, I can remember being in, swimming competitions or doing gymnastics or different sports. And I can remember wanting to be the best in it and wanting to win at it and wanting to do those things, but also knowing, on the other side of that, if you don't, life's going to go on. It's okay. But so you might as well just go kind of all out in that endeavor. And I think when you can break that threshold, which I learned to break as a kid, I think, when you can learn to break past that and just not be held back and have no limits, I think that freedom of playing a sport or that freedom mentally allows you to, only be held back by the physical barriers that you might have. And so for me, I never felt like mentally I was held back in anything. Where I see that with my coaching with a lot of players, and I struggle to sometimes understand that. Like, how can you mentally be holding yourself back from accomplishing what you want to accomplish? Like, the only thing that should stop you is if something physical.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is developed at a really young age and from a bunch of different sports. And I'd say I can't always pinpoint it, and I wouldn't change anything about how I grew up in so many of the resilient ways. Like, you know, having my parents divorce and my mom brings up as a single mom. I think I learned so many qualities, but she just taught us the right way of doing things. And I wouldn't change that, because I think that, you know, I think all those things led me to be the athlete and the person that I am today as well.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's probably a combination of so many things, but it's that balance of, because you are incredibly competitive, but it's that balance of, I want to win, but I'm going to let it go once it's done. I've done everything I can. It's that ability to really push yourself in the moment to be that competitive, and then be comfortable knowing that you've done everything you can, and we still lost, but you know, we did the best we can. It's a fine balance, that area. And yeah, I find the more athletes I talk to, that ability to let go of the outcome gives you the ability to not be afraid to stuff something up. So you're like, oh, clutch time, I'll take it. I'll be the one who takes that shot, you know, and if I miss it, I miss it, but at least I had a crack at it. There's a mentality behind that. Just quickly, one of the questions was what was the significance behind the power buns, and how did it earn a spot as the J.A.7 game day hair? This might go back to your pre-game.
Yeah, it does a little bit, I guess. I actually had gone for a haircut, and the old infamous, like, just a couple inches in the States, and they've gone off like 5 to 6, and I've left bawling. Can't put my hair in a ponytail, and we have a game, and so freaking out in the locker room. And I ended up joking around, and we put it in these 2 buns, and we had an unbelievable game that game. And so all the girls were like, you can never change that. And it's funny because I joke and I say, oh, I'm pretty superstitious, so I continued to wear them, but it actually just became more routine for me than anything. A part of the routine that made me just feel comfortable and feel confident. And, you know I could have played without them, and still, you know, the result wouldn't have been because of how I wore my hair. But certainly in a preparation for a game from then on out, it became just a comfort for me, comfort for my teammates. If I came out with a ponytail, they'd be like, go back in there and put those power buns, or however, battle buns, whatever you want to call them, back in. Because it gave them comfort. It was kind of just one of those things. And yeah, it just evolved over time. And
what was some other pre-game things you did? Because I remember you being quite particular about some things, or joking about some things in pre-game, and, you know, having your own system. But what were your non-negotiables when you were getting ready for games?
Yeah, I had to have a shower as close as I could to when we were going out into the field. So sometimes that was at a locker room, or sometimes it was a hotel room right before we left, or then I like to, like I said, I like to think in the shower and like feel just clean and sharp and ready to go. So always shower as soon as I can, as close as I can to those things. Yeah, little bits and pieces. You know, I do think back, and I think about, when I think about like really elite athletes, and I don't put myself in that category a lot, because I'm like, I was a bit of a larrikin. Like, as you know, I definitely had fun with it. And so sometimes I don't necessarily equate having fun with being an elite athlete. But when I draw things back and I try to trace it all the way back, I actually think that's one of the reasons, you know, I was able to be successful, is I didn't put all that pressure on myself. And I felt like from even myself, I could ease tension in the moment by some of those jokes. So as you know, the night before, or before big games, you know, playing a good game of Would You Rather, or, you know, what would you do to win the game type thing. And, you know, I just think for me, like, yeah, those moments, and where I'd sometimes do equate it with not being as elite as I needed to be. I think I always did what I needed to do when I needed to do it.
Yeah.
But I also never compromised with having a good time doing it. And I'm glad about that when I look back on it.
Well, it's a part of it, isn't it? Some players like to be tightly wound and really in the moment, and other players like to be relaxed. I mean, we were similar that way, that we were happy to have a joke and step on the field and know we'd done everything we could. So back to the Maryland stuff. What do you think allowed for that continued success there? You won 4 national titles there while you played. what do you think it was about that team? I remember you guys practicing quite different to most other teams. You know, you didn't spend time just pounding the pavement like other people did, doing time runs and all that. You just played. But what do you think the significant things you guys did to keep that going, like that confidence, that level of excellence, the different kind of play you did? What do you think it was?
Yeah, and look, I think it's people. I think having the right kind of people around you. I mean, I was so lucky. The players that I played with and had the chance to win those championships with, you know, all had roles to play, and everyone was such an integral part. And I think it's knowing and owning your brand. Like every day we went out to practice, you know, whatever drill we were in, we knew what it looked like and what it felt like to train or play like a Maryland lacrosse player. And so there was that real like buy into it and accountability for it for you as an individual. And we held that, you know, as cocky as it might sound, at a higher standard than anyone else in the country. So when you're going out to practice every day and you know your teammates are, you're like, I'm going up against another Maryland teammate at practice. I'm like, there's no one else in the country that's going to give me as hard of a time as this defender here. And I think that's, you know, that confidence in your team and what you're doing. But it's also that just, I think when you really understand what you're about as a program, and when you really, you know, have so much pride in that you don't care what everyone else is doing. It's irrelevant. It's just about you. And I say it all the time. I say it to my Loyola girls, you know, you got to be where your feet are. And I think that's what we always were at Maryland. We weren't ever looking ahead of ourselves. We were always just only worried with that next practice or that next play or that next moment, because that's all that was relevant in that time, was where we were standing and who we were standing around. So I think being present is just so important.
Yeah, 100%. That was a great answer. Okay, let's swap to World Cup questions now. Did you think there was anything in particular about that 05 gold-winning team and campaign that set it apart from the others for you?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard when you try to like dissect or find the special ingredients in something, because you have them in other teams and you're like, but we weren't, you know, we didn't win a gold, but we had it, you know, and so it's hard to find it. I mean, I will say we went away with such a clear focus, and the focus, I think, with 05 for me, which we really bought into, was we as an Australian team are going to go over and we're going to be the most prepared team to ever leave Australian soil. And our focus was all about that. It was trained to be the best Australian team that has ever played the game. It wasn't trained to be the team that takes down the US. It wasn't trained to be the team that beats Canada. It wasn't trained to be the team that medals. It wasn't any of those things. We only cared about one thing. It was trained to be the best freaking team that's ever left Australian soil. And everything you did in the lead up to that, every single player, there was so much trust in each other that in our own little states, and we had people in America, we had people back in Australia training, everyone was doing their part. That when we got together and we showed up, it was like this mass, you know, celebration and party of, we've all been doing our own thing for so long, and here we are together, and we get to pull it all together into one, you know, pretty little package and dump it onto a lacrosse field at the Naval Academy and tie it up with a gold medal. And I just think, you know, we had fun. There was such a good mix in that team. There was leadership throughout. Obviously, Sarah Forbes was an incredible leader. Sasha Newmarch, those guys did a great job. And our coaching staff as well. But I just think the team in general, the vibe, it was very authentic, genuine, selfless, and proud. And I think that, you know, that they're all special traits to have as part of the World Cup team.
That was summed up so perfectly. Just personally for you, you obviously had a few things that happened in your last few World Cups that hindered the enjoyment and, you know, just the nature of sport. You know, injuries happen. You got injured before 09 and managed to get through 09, through most of it. Yep. And then, or all of it. And then obviously 13, you tore your ACL days before we took the field. Tell us about those moments. Well, more so, tell me about, was there any disappointments from World Cups that you felt, and what were they? And were they injury part of it?
You know, disappointments. I think an easy answer would be like losses. I know in the moment, like, you know, even '09, we came away and we've won silver, and that is such an accomplishment and it's incredible. Yet we felt so deflated by silver in that moment. But stepping back years from then now, and I put myself back there, I'm like, we should have been proud of ourselves. We should have, you know, held our heads high. We battled that game, and while it would have been nice to win it, it was still amazing what we did. And so sometimes it's like you have that taken away from you to realize how important it was, and how great it was, and how big of an accomplishment it was. But I'd say, like, when I think about disappointments in an Australian uniform, or when I've represented Australia, 13 comes to mind, and not because of my injury, because I actually think, you know, I really switched my focus when I tore my ACL to, okay, it's not about what can't I do for this team. It's what can I do? What can I still do? I don't have a knee. I can't be on the field. I can't play, but what can I still do? I can still be on the sideline. I can still cheer my teammates on. I can still try to help lead in that way. But a disappointing moment for me, and this is just brutal honesty. I know Max was in the locker room right before our final game, the bronze medal game against England, and he was giving out jerseys with people, and he was basically went through the entire team, and he gave each player their jersey and talked to them and about how special they were and what an important part of the program they were. And I didn't get a jersey. He didn't do me, but he'd done other people. And I'm disappointed I was upset in that moment, and I let it show. And I'll forever be disappointed by how I handled myself in that moment, because it was not about me, and it's never about me, and it's never about one individual. And I made it about me in that moment. You know, some of my best mates getting ready to go out in the field felt the need to stop and hug me and say, you're still a big part of this team. And that shouldn't have happened. And I got it together, and I was able to move on. But I wish if I could take back a moment, that's disappointing. And I think in coaching now, I see it in playing time and those bits and pieces. And the game is not about you. It's always bigger than you. And I think the more people can understand that, and I draw on '05, I think we all understood that. The game was always going to be bigger than us. Mm-hmm. But the more you can make it not about you, and you can make it about the team and the bigger picture, the more successful you're going to be as a unit. And so when I think about disappointment, it's always going to come up for me, but it's also helped me to, I think, navigate and be able to empathize and have thoughtful conversations with my players now as a coach.
And I think too, like, everybody has a disappointment or a moment in their career, or many, that they feel embarrassed about or just disappointed themselves. I have it, but it's so much more significant for you than it was for everybody else. You know what I mean? Like that, I wouldn't even have like remembered it, but for you, you felt like it affected. You know what I mean? It's like the significance is so much bigger when it's you thinking back on yourself. Okay, so 3 things that you think are important when you're training for a World Cup to be prepared on day one and be able to sustain for, 10 days. What do you think 3 important key things are?
3 important key things.
You're so spion, you didn't read the questions beforehand now, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I always overthink things when I read them. I like not to, but okay. 3 things. Well, I really think a big one is having intrinsic motivation and figuring out what that is and training with it throughout your lead up to World Cup. Because you're going to need to rely on that when you get there. And it's easy to find external sources of motivation. And you can find them at home when you're training from other people, but you get to a World Cup and things are different. So you've got to find a place that you can go that pushes you over that hump when you think you're done. You can't rely on any other external factor or other person to get you there. So in your training, I'd say training with that consistency of finding that internal motivation and allowing that to push you to new limits, so that you can rely on that when you get to that World Cup, because there's going to be a point where you feel like you're mentally and physically broken, and you got to jump past that hurdle, and you've got to get there yourself. So I'd say that's a big one. Adaptability, I think, is massive. I think I've definitely gone away to World Cups with expectations of how things are going to be, and then I get there and you let it rattle you. like not having a locker room in Prague or having a locker room in like a cafeteria kitchen place where they're frying chips, and we were like, we can't even be in there, it makes us feel sick. So you can't allow things to kind of get in your way of what you're doing and cloud your vision, especially. So I think adaptability and being able to roll with the punches, and like that's how it is. And again, you know, I go back to the 05 one again, but it's happened like I think in 13, all our bags didn't show up in Canada. We get off the bus, we're stuck there, the buses don't come. Like you just got to learn to find a way to get out of that and laugh it off, or move on from it. You can't let all that stuff, because it's going to happen at World Cup. All kind of different things are going to come in and try and penetrate your ability to get to where you want to get to. So your ability to be adaptable, I think, is huge as well. And then I think selfless pursuit of everything you do. Again, I go back to, it's not about you. It's never going to be about you. You're not playing an individual sport. You didn't choose tennis. You didn't choose golf. You chose lacrosse. And so you're going to be reliant on your, 17 other teammates. You're going to be reliant on, in order to win a gold medal, not one person wins the gold medal. You can't take the draw, play defense, score goals, and get in the cage and make a stop. So I think being selfless in how you train too is so important. And then getting there and just giving yourself in whatever capacity or way that possibly can be at a World Cup. And I think if you keep that in mind throughout a World Cup, you can't go wrong. If it's just always constantly striving to be the best teammate you can be out there and to do whatever is asked of you as a player, I think you can't go wrong.
Great answer. What do you think at World Cup? Because World Cups are a bit of a pressure cooker in terms of, the condensed version of high elite playing. But what do you think sets apart the good players and the great players when you're on the World Cup stage?
I think there's composure and poise you see with those players. Don't get rattled by the players they're up against, the countries they're up against. There's a consistency in how they go about playing the game. And I think that does come with that confidence. And I use the word confidence loosely because I don't love it as a word. It's like, what is confidence? Confidence is actually preparation. So if you feel prepared and you feel like I'm good enough to be here, you're confident. So I always like to say, show up prepared. And you won't ever have to say, I'm just not feeling confident today, right? If you show up prepared and you go in and you feel good about your abilities out on the field, you don't need to say, I'm playing really confidently. You only ever hear it when people say, I just don't feel confident in this moment, or I'm not feeling as confident as I usually do. So, I think it is that ability to, I think Melly coined it in our 05 campaign, but teacup, think critically under pressure. I think about that all the time. And I do think that is a key element of all good athletes. Just that composure and poise and ability to stay steady. It's really easy to be a good teammate or to be a good leader or to be a good player when everything's going your way. But when the shit hits the fan, that's when the great players show up. The good players are there when it's all coasting and it's going great, but the really great players and the excellent players, they're going to show up when shit hits the fan and they're going to take control.
Awesome. How would you like to see the Australian team play in the 2021 World Cup? Like, what would you like to see and say about that team?
I would just love to see him go over there with just relentless intention to be the best version of Australian lacrosse. We've won gold medals, we've done these things, but there's still a standard. And I think, we can look at it like we don't need to give ourselves a bar. Why not leave the bar open and say, let's just go for it? And I think in order to be a different team, you got to do different things. And so I'd love to see Australian lacrosse tap into our explosive, creative, innovative, dynamic style of lacrosse. And I have no question in my mind that the culture side and the mateship and the ability to just be like the best teammates that we can possibly be and represent Australia and just have that like genuine, authentic, when people see you, they're like, God, the Aussies, I want to be an Aussie. They have so much fun. Look at them. They're enjoying themselves. They're loving it. I want to see all that, but I think that comes naturally because that's authentically who we are. So I think tapping into this, just like trust in our game and trust in what we do back in Australia and on our own shores, that it's enough, and trust that it can get us to where we want to get to.
Great answer. I know this is a funny question for you because you could give two shits about sticks, but one of the questions was, what stick would you use at the next World Cup if you were playing?
Oh, shit.
Asking the girl who literally could be given any stick in full tennis racket, no pocket, never played with anything. Is there a stick at the moment that you're like, oh, that feels nice?
Yeah. I usually do just use whatever I'm given at Loyola. We've just switched from Under Armour to G.O.A.T, so I haven't even worked in a new stick yet. I don't even know what I couldn't even tell you the brand, like the
It's
type.
literally your hardest question of the whole thing. Don't worry, don't answer it. You've got no answer.
I don't know the names of them, but yeah. I've been loving on the hybrid mesh pocket.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, great.
Is that answer?
That's great. We'll take it. Okay, so let's just move into mateship and preparation and those kind of things rolled into one. But one of the major things about you when I was thinking about you was how consistently great you were. Like there was never a time where it was like, oh, she had a bad game. That wasn't your vibe. I know you might think it, but you genuinely showed up all the time. And at crucial points of a game, without fail, you were there. Talk to us about how you stayed so consistent. Like, what was it that allowed your mindset and to just stay in a zone that allowed you to be present and available and at your best all the time?
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it is just that I definitely went into games just like excited to play the game. I never was like really burdened down by like feeling nervous or, you know, I'd get nervous and really early on in my athletic career, someone talked to me about, you know, butterflies are good. It means you care. It means that you're attaching meaning to it. But your job is to try to get your butterflies to fly in formation so they don't make you feel sick. And I just feel like I like going out to a game. It's like you can win or lose. That's just it. You can win or lose. It's a 50-50. Like you can go out, you could play a great game, you could play a really crap, shitty game. Like it's a 50-50, you know? So go out and just, I don't think I ever attached too much to it. I never got bogged down by like the external noise or pressures or expectations that other people put on me. Obviously they creep in. And there's times certainly throughout my career, I'm sure, you know, I did struggle through some of those things because I did allow them to get to me. But for the most part, I think going into a game, I was just very cognizant of the fact that it was a game. It was going to be 60 minutes. The whistle would go at the end. The whistle would start the game. The whistle would finish the game. And whatever I did in those 60 minutes would be over, and I couldn't do anything about it after that last whistle went. So, yeah, I'm not sure there's like, something I can pinpoint. It's not like a specific training thing or a playing like attribute that I can really think about. But I do know that I never really felt bogged down going into a game about what the game meant.
Did you do any visualization or anything?
Heaps. I grew up playing softball actually. Yeah. And yeah.
People don't know that about you.
Keep your mouth shut. But I grew up playing softball, and I actually went to like the South Australian Institute of Sport, went to the AIS for softball with the Junior Olympic training program. And it was really cool. That was where like learning about the mental side of the game when I was really young and being able to draw that in. And I have visualized ever since. I love it. Breaking the game down in my head or like before I go out, getting myself focused and ready to go. It's just been around for as long as I can remember as an athlete. So I can't even think of a time where like I didn't use it. All big games in my mind, I prepared with visualization and, you know, even through, you know, injuries or bits and pieces in other World Cups, being able to stay training or focused doing that. The mental side of it has always been something I've really been fascinated about and have really enjoyed like thinking about in terms of sport.
When you think about your, the teammate that you want to stand next to you in battle, when you think about that type of teammate and the qualities they have, explain to us, it can be about one specific person or about the certain traits that you try to coach in people or think about for yourself that, that even how you recruit players, what you're looking for. What is in that ideal teammate in your mind that you want next to you?
Yeah, I just think unwavering trust. And I think that's off the field and on the field. I think they go hand in hand for me. But like when you just know that you got a teammate that has your back no matter what, that'll bury the dead body with you. Like when you legitimately know that person's in your corner, you can come out swinging because it doesn't matter if you fall, they're going to be there to pick you up. And I think that's huge on the lacrosse field, being able to take risks and being like, I've got the right people in my corner. They trust me, I trust them. And I think that's one of the big things, and just genuinely knowing that your teammates are there for the right reasons, and you're all looking towards the same end goal. You want the same things. You have like-minded kind of pursuit of what you're heading for, and just I think like tough, relentless. Like I just think like total battlers. Like I think at all World Cups and things, I've just been like players that would just, they would run through a brick wall. You would do it, and you just know the people next to you would do it, and you walk off a field together, and it doesn't matter whether you win or lose because you've done that together. And that group of people will be the only group of people that will ever know that moment. Other people could try to understand it. They will never know that moment except that group of people standing on the field who have trained for that long, what that feels like. And that's something that you hang on to for the rest of your life. And so you want it to be with people that you genuinely enjoy being around and care about. And then it makes it easy.
Yeah, that gives me chills. Did you do anything consciously to lift that and help your teammates be successful? Were there any things you consciously did? I know, remembering playing with you, you certainly were a security blanket for so many of us, but you did give us that soft place to land if we didn't, pull off something we were intending to do. But was there anything else that you consciously did to help other people be successful when you were playing with them?
Oh gosh.
I know.
I'm not sure. You're probably better to answer that question. But no, I think over the years and as I got later into my career, definitely, trying to help other people see their potential and trust in their own, skill set. Whether that was, pulling it in and being like, you need to go to goal more, or cut, I'll find you, or whatever it was. Or like we talked about, I think I quite often through my career would sense tension or when things and try to ease that, whether it was through a joke or saying something funny or bringing it in and everyone thinks there's going to be something really serious or like a full hardo comment that's said, and instead you just crack a joke or say something and it just, eases the tension. And I think that was often helpful. You can't have a whole team of that kind of people, obviously, or you wouldn't get anywhere. You'd certainly not be very fit, but I do think that's probably, I don't know, maybe what I'd lead to when I think about that is how I helped people through is not trying to have a balance between having fun and being competitive.
Yeah. When you think about the few injuries you had, because you certainly weren't a player that ever got injured. You just had a couple that happened to coincide with World Cups. Was there anything that, like any self-talk through those moments injuries are just mental warfare for most people. You've really got to navigate through a tunnel of something that is it's common for some, but not really. Was there anything that it taught you about yourself, like from that, particularly probably 2013? Did you learn anything about yourself by going through that trauma of it, when it happened and how it happened?
Yeah, look, I learned heaps. I learned so much through my injuries, and even looking back, I think that, and I even think in particular, obviously the ACL being a very like, gutting, very like it happened right before, it felt like the sniper, thinking this was going to be the swan song. I'm going to roll out of this last World Cup and all that training. But I think one of the big things, and right in the moment, it had kind of come to me, and I think it's what put me at ease and at peace with injuring myself that way, was thinking, how lucky am I to have been in a position where I was training for Australia, or I'm playing for Australia, that I get to tear my ACL, which sounds really strange and it's a weird way of putting it, but that is what went through my head at the time. And just in a place of like, kind of like gratitude, I've come this far, and like how lucky that I was one of those people that even got to be out there. Sure, I tore my ACL, but you were representing your country doing that. And so I think I did learn so much about myself. When you can't play the sport that you love, I always say like it's an identity stripper. It was for me. I'm identified with being a lacrosse player, and then I can't play on the field because I've hurt my knee. So it forced me to look at a lot of other parts of myself, and in particular coaching wise or leading, trying to be a good leader, and trying to be a better coach, and and focus on those parts of the game that I now needed to shift my identity towards, and finding enjoyment in that, which I was able to. And I'm sure not everyone can do that, but I was lucky that I was able to stay in the sport and find a different path within that sport, because for a lot of people it's playing and it's over and that's it. So it is a very different kind of circumstance, but I was able to shift my focus and say, okay, you just can't play the game now. What more can you pump into other areas of the game, so that you don't lose it?
And you've certainly done that, far out. Let's talk about marginal gains and 1%ers. And was there anything that you think back on now as a player that you were like, whoa, that small change I made a big difference? Was there anything you changed in your training, or any little tiny things that really made a big difference for you?
Yeah, I was always, look, call a spade here. I'd show up for most of the lead up of camps and would get the old you need to work on your fitness side of it. No matter how hard I tried, that was always on my feedback sheet. But I always knew what I needed to go away and do. And ever since that first World Cup, I played in 2001 actually, and I was training over in the States. I just graduated college and was over here training, and all the rest of the team was basically back in Australia. And I used to go through, and every time I'd run, I would run the rep or whatever it was for a player on the team. And I did that every World Cup that I trained. Every single time I went out and trained, I would run the rep, not for me, but for someone else. And then I would find during a World Cup, like I talked about, like my intrinsic motivation, I trained that way. I could be out on a field and be like, do it for Stacey, like go harder for Courtney, do it, And I think that for me, pushing it to someone else and being like, other people are relying on you. Like you can't let them down. Yeah. For me, that's a big motivator. And that is internal for me, is I internally have a very strong desire to not let my teammates down, and to want to, pick up any piece that I can pick up to support them to get to our end goal. And so I think in training, and I think about 1%ers, it was always pushing that little bit harder for someone else.
Yeah, it does truly work too, doesn't it? Okay, obviously team culture, that whole area is a really big part of your coaching. It is having coached with you, and just the amount of time and effort you put into building team culture is a really significant part of who you are. And from your perspective as a player and a coach, what do you think the non-negotiables are in a team in terms of culture that they need to be successful?
Oh, man, we could go, I could go We could go for hours.
Yeah.
You know, it's a deep one, but I mean, I think first and foremost is buy-in. And you have to genuinely, authentically buy in. If you don't, it is sniffed out from a mile away. You can't, it's not one of those you can fake it till you make it. It's you got to buy in. And if you can't buy in, you got to look at why. And then if you can't get past that, sometimes the answer is it's just not for me, because you shouldn't be putting other people through that. And I think that is really important. I think accountability is so important. You know, being accountable and understanding that your actions have greater consequences than just for yourself. It's a bigger picture. I think that's a really big one. And I think then in your training and how you conduct yourself is always for a greater cause and something bigger. It's for the country, it's for your teammates. So accountability is big. Loyalty and pride, I think they go together for me. They're synonymous and kind of join nicely. But when you're fiercely loyal and proud of something and where you come from, you can usually rely on that. You can usually back yourself on that. In most settings, it can be your default and your fallback. And then just, you know, I could add 100 words in here, but passionate. I think insanely passionate about what you're doing. You got to love it. If you're hating going through it and you're hating the training and you're hating the process, it's not going to get better when you get to a World Cup. It's only harder. So you got to love the journey that you're on. You got to love the process that you're going through to get there, the baby steps, the stumbles, the backtracking you have to do sometimes, the really hard kind of exposing look that you need to take at yourself, the vulnerability and ability to take a look and sometimes to take feedback and grow from that feedback. But all that I think comes from being passionate enough to want to be there. That we always like to say there's a difference between being compelled and sacrificing. And we want the kind of athletes that want to be compelled, not us sacrificing things. So they want to be compelled to get over there and play in a World Cup, not I'm sacrificing all this time so that I can play in a World Cup. And I think if you can find yourself on the side of compelled, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, great.
And that's part of that culture.
What is there anything, even just in life, but as a player, that made you really nervous? Like, was there anything that you were like, oh no, aside from running, what was it?
Yeah, no doubt running for sure. Run tests, those bloody agilities we used to do with Rob Taylor, they made me nervous. No, not really. Actually, I take that back. Stacey getting yellow and red cards in World Cups always made me nervous, especially when she was kicked out of games. But yeah, I think because you want it for so much for other people. I was always nervous when other people got injured. I was always nervous when things happened to other people that were out of my control and I couldn't help. I couldn't fix. I couldn't, score a goal and be able to, win the game. Or like those things that were just out of my control, they made me nervous. And that's why you hear so often people saying only control the things that you can control. And it makes total sense to me. It all comes together. But I would say when I think about times I felt pressure or nervous, it was because it was things that happening to other people or in situations where I felt like I couldn't help.
When I think about how you play too, and aside from all the things that you use to intrinsically motivate yourself in terms of doing it for your teammates, all those things and not putting too much weight on the outcome, obviously you had a really high lacrosse IQ. Firstly, do you think that was an innate thing for you? Do you think it just came naturally?
I mean, weirdly, I guess, because I've never, I can't process or think back to a time where like there was an aha moment or something was taught to me that I was like, it all clicked and came together. So I guess innate, and I think that's just other sports. Like what I can do is draw from so many sports. I got that from softball. Oh, I got that from when I used to play soccer. Oh, I got that from when I played netball. Those different bits and pieces. Like I can do that in the process of thinking about my lacrosse game. But I do struggle to think about just like reading and seeing and the IQ to see where it came from.
What do you find most comfort in? Like if you're in a game and things aren't really going great, internally, what do you go back to? What's the messaging you tell yourself to stay in it?
Oh, we're going to get the deep and dirty secrets out here. Actually, I've had this tune that I have always played in my head. It is ridiculous, and I can't even believe I'm going to share this right now. But like you know that circus like do, 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 do,
Yes.
do. Okay. Anytime like that's what goes through my head. Literally.
That's the inside of your brain in a pressure cooking moment.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Has always been.
Now I know.
I don't know if it's just like bring like silliness to it. I don't know if I'm just picturing like a clown juggling on an elephant or something. I don't know, but like it just takes me to a place where I'm like,
whatever.
Don't think.
Wow.
Freak.
Fantastic.
So
now
disgusting.
I know why you never spoke about it.
I should know. Can we edit this?
No, absolutely not.
Invest in this one.
Okay, we're winding down now. What's your
favorite
favorite lacrosse memory and why? Or more than one?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're better than that, mate.
I know.
You're better than to ask a question like that.
I know.
Favorite lacrosse. I mean, you win a gold medal for your country, under 19 World Cup gold medal, 2005 gold medals when you're wearing Australia across your chest and you know, you've attained the highest thing that you can possibly attain. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Yes. Great. So it's probably along the same lines, but name a few of your favorite teams to play on and why.
Yeah, okay. Well, growing up, my Brighton Lacrosse Club crew, juniors was so fun. I freaking loved it. And I just was back over playing in club and a bunch of old folks got out there with, you know, the old sticks, dusted them off and had to play. And it was just as fun as it was when, you know, we were 10, 11 years old. And having those relationships and those friendships where you play and there's just no strings attached in those kind of games, you know, where you think about growing up and going out to play club and it was just so fun.
Yeah.
So definitely that crew at Brighton Lacrosse Club. And then, my 2001 Maryland side was pretty special. Again, we went through undefeated in that year. And for our 4th national championship and had to go to like triple overtime to win that championship. And they're just rock stars. They're like my best friends in the world and they're just awesome. And it's more just about the people that we're on the field with, and less about the fact that we won the championship, more just about the people and what you got to experience together. Under 19 World Cup was so cool. Like, I mean, we were just talking about 15 years or 20 years or whatever it was, 25 years. I don't even know. Where am I now?
Yeah,
Either way, we're old.
25.
We were in 95.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we were, yeah. So we're all old ducks now. But we were reminiscing back on it too and sharing some old photos when I was over back home. And that was so fun. I mean, that was the first ever under 19 World Cup to be played. We had no idea what the hell was going on. And we're out there and the Australians just came in, I think, because we came in with a reckless abandon. Yeah. And we were like, whatever. We heard the US talking about sizing their rings in the cafeteria line. And we're like, who gets a ring for winning a World Cup? Like, we were like, you know what, we're going to go win. And then we're going to ask them for their rings. But, but I think that I just think back on those times and those girls and what a great crew, what a great group. 05. I mean, in my heart forever. Like when I think about teams, when I speak to my Loyola team, when I speak to under 19 teams that we coach, when I speak in terms of a pinnacle team, what it looks like and feels like, it's 05. I know it can never be just recreated like it is. And that's what's hard is when you feel like you got something so right, you want to recreate it, but that's almost the worst thing you can try to do. You got to find your own way to create the thing that's so right. That's a challenge. But 05 was just knockout. Like crossed every T, dotted every I, and was just literally one of the coolest experiences of my life.
Yeah, so true. If you could go back to your younger self and give it any lacrosse, give your lacrosse self any advice, what would it be?
Oh, probably like, don't eat that Snickers. Like, it'll catch up to you.
You're an idiot.
Advice. It would have been to like just literally stop for a second and bottle up every moment. I know I skipped through things way too quick, and I was constantly like moving on to the next thing and moving on to the next thing. And, you know, I even think about that in 05, we won the gold medal. And I remember within the next week, I'm like, okay, we've got to avenge it. We've got to show up to Prague and we got to win the next gold one. And I wish I'd spent 4 years being like, we're freaking gold medalists and we're the best country in the world and suck it to everyone else. But, you know, I do think I would tell myself to slow down, stop, and enjoy the things going on around you a little bit more.
That's great advice. Name someone who's been really influential in your life and why.
Man, these are heavy hitters.
Yep, sure are.
Well, yeah, I could speak on a billion people, but you know, easy one that comes to mind for me is my sister Trish. You know, I just think in terms of I've followed in her shadow since I was a kid. Everything she did, I think I'm in lacrosse because of her. I play the game because she did. You know, getting to represent Australia at under-19s with her, and then getting to coach on the sideline with her in an Australian uniform. It's one of the coolest things. And to see, I've never met someone, and not just being biased because she's my sister, but I have never seen someone more authentic and genuine in terms of pouring all of herself into what she does. She is so caring and compassionate and wants nothing more than the best for the people that she coaches, the sport of lacrosse, you know, club, whatever it is, you know, she's just got all of herself into it. And, you know, I wish I could be half of that, you know, to my players or to the people that I encounter that she is. So I'd say she's been very influential.
Yeah, you're certainly right. You nailed her there. But you have all that too. So you're lucky ducks. You've got the good stuff. Okay, 2 more questions. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of?
Yeah, lay it bare, girlfriend. Lay it bare. Never thought about this, have you? So sad.
I'd say most proud of just the relationships that I've built and sustained. I mean, from kids, like we used to be pen pals and write back and forward and just constants in your life. You know, I think about so many Australian players or my Brighton players, like I talked about, and just people that I'm just proud that I have in my life and have sustained as people that I'm friends with over time. And
hello, mate. That's Jen.
What's up, mate?
Say hi to Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Okay.
Hi, buddy.
Okay, toot toot. See you later. Yeah, quick. I don't know. He's out there somewhere. Hold on 1 second.
I'm certainly not proud of my ability to focus solely.
Not when kids are around, you're like a giant child.
But yeah, I'd say that I feel like I have very genuine relationships with those teammates and friends and people that I have from home as well, which I think is hard, you know, living over here. And I've lived over here for over half my life now, over half the time, longer than I have Australia. So to be able to go home, and I'd say that is something I'm very proud of, is that will bleed Australia. I am so proud of the country that I'm from. Doesn't matter how long I spend in, you know, the US, I will forever be, you know, yellow and gold and so proud of where I've come from and my roots, and just that, you know, I'm an Australian. I think that's something I'm proud of.
Yeah. Fave podcast, book, movie that you go to for motivation, inspiration? You're going to have a lot, aren't you?
Well, I have a zillion. Yeah. I mean, I love watching, documentaries on, anytime they pop up or come around. There's one right now over here in the States called The Weight of Gold. And it's, different athletes like Michael Phelps and stuff kind of chronicling and talking about, their lead up to Olympics and stuff like that. It's cool. Shaun White and a bunch of different people on there. But yeah, anything like that. There's a movie. I mean, it's dripping with US soccer players, which I know is tough. It's but
you still get a lot out of it.
Yeah, the 99 is called Dare to Dream, and I freaking loved it. It was the time of the 99 US team where they basically transformed women's soccer, and it kind of has a lot of their own raw footage of when they're at the World Cup or training sessions and things like that, spliced into this documentary. And I love it because I see there's so much correlation between, they're all hanging out, whether they're going to meals or it's in their hotel rooms or it's different bits and pieces. And I love it because it was the kind of springboard for them into becoming professional and becoming this mainstream sport. And, I see that for lacrosse. I know we're a little bit further behind, but I see, maybe it's this next World Cup team could be our lacrosse version of the 99ers and having that experience. So if you get a chance, watch it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But there's a zillion, right? There's a zillion podcasts.
And you're one of those people that constantly evolve and educate yourself and want to learn more and reinvent, all the great things that you've had happen to you. But that's us done here. But the girls will be so pumped, Jenny. It's such a thrill to pick your brain and understand that all the awesomeness behind you was due to a circus tune. But I know I can speak for so many of us in saying that you have been such a trailblazer for women's lacrosse here and in America, and you've carved a path for so many of the girls here to dream big, but also just to improve the sport in both countries and around the world. I mean, personally for me, you've always challenged me, on the field and off the field as a coach, and moved the needle forward for me to be the best version of myself. And I know that if you're doing that for me, you're certainly doing it for a million other girls out there. So thank you so much for your time. I love you. And we thank you so much for finally letting us inside that brilliant mind of yours.
Oh gosh, dangerous stuff. I tell you what.
Not dangerous at all.
All the good nuggets.
Yeah.
Well, I know you guys are going to absolutely, I don't even need to say it. I just have so many good feelings about what's going to happen with you guys when you finally get, out. I think part of that resilience of going through all the bits and pieces you're going through now is what makes this campaign special. And looking back, all of the trying times right now will be triumphs later on, and you guys will make sure of that. So I'm just so excited as a lacrosse fan, an Australian lacrosse fan. I can't wait to see what you guys all do next, and keep training hard and keep pushing each other, and just always have that Aussie flag waving in front of you.
Yeah, that's right. Totally. Thanks, Jenny.
Awesome, Stace.